Good morning. My name is Greg Bentley, and I'm here with Paul Singh. Today, we filed a lawsuit on behalf of the Singh family for the wrongful death of Misty Holt-Singh. The named defendants are the City of Stockton, the Stockton Police Department, and the 32 officers that fired over 600 bullets in a disabled vehicle, knowing that an innocent hostage was still inside. We know that we lost a wonderful mother, a wonderful wife, a friend, someone involved in the community on this tragic day. We watched the press conference yesterday and noted and commended Chief Jones for accepting responsibility for the department's failures. We appreciate them. We received just yesterday the report from the Police Foundation. We are pleased, as we said previously, that the city asked an independent agency to investigate and review the circumstances concerning this tragic day. We are pleased that the Police Foundation took its time, interviewed over 50 people, reviewed thousands of pages of documents, photographs, video footage from different agencies, whether it's Caltrans, RTD, the various police departments that have video footage, and footage from local residents that captured the events of that tragic day. The Police Foundation is a national organization that reviewed this event. The Police Foundation has now prepared its report, which we have seen. We commend the city for allowing this national agency to review their conduct. Admittedly, yesterday Chief Jones acknowledged that this review is somewhat painful, and this review could cause exposure to the city in the civil litigation, two of which had already been filed, and in our case, that is filed this morning. Much of what's in the report we knew. Much of what is in the report has already confirmed what we knew happened that day. What we know happened is that these officers were not properly trained, properly supervised, did not follow protocol, did not follow national protocol or their own department policy during these course of events, resulting in the tragic death of a wonderful person. The Police Foundation confirmed that 600 rounds were excessive and unnecessary. There's no clearer way to say it. 600 rounds on a disabled vehicle, excessive, unnecessary force. We knew that. 32 officers fired 600 rounds at a disabled vehicle, knowing that an innocent hostage was inside. They did not have a direct line of sight. They fired indiscriminately, and they did so in sympathy fire, and they did so recklessly, and they did so due to the chaos involved and the manner in which they pursued, chased, disabled, and then engaged in these robbers. They did so without the care for the safety of the innocent hostage inside the vehicle. The Foundation report confirms that more than 600 rounds were fired at the suspect vehicle, many after the threat had been eliminated. The report also confirms that the conduct of the Stockton police officers was well below industry standards. The Police Foundation notes that there was inappropriate and unreasonable use of sympathetic fire. Simply firing in the heat of the moment, in a chaotic situation, because other people are firing. That is inexcusable, it's unacceptable, and it's unreasonable force. The Police Foundation confirmed that despite direction from the watch commander to limit the number of officers in pursuit, Dozens of officers continued in the chase and ended up at the pursuit conclusion in a position to shoot at the suspects. There was complete and total lack of command. There was complete and total lack of following standard protocol and commands from supervisors once they were given. The Foundation also confirmed that there was no planned response for when the suspect vehicle stopped. That is completely unacceptable. That puts the safety of everybody at risk without having a planned response when that vehicle gets disabled. The report continues to state this lack of planning, along with the number of officers involved, created a level of chaos that was difficult to manage and overcome. The lack of training of these officers, the lack of supervision and direction, the failure to follow command did in fact create chaos that was impossible to manage that day. And it was impossible to overcome what law enforcement knows, what best practices are in law enforcement. You don't create this chaos because ultimately bad things happen. And they could not overcome their failures at the expense of the life of Misty. The report notes that at the stop, the width of the felony stop, the number of cars, you've seen these photographs with cars scattered all throughout the block on both sides of the street, 4 different locations. The width of the stop and lack of planned responsibilities also contributed to the sympathetic fire. Unacceptable. The report is critical for the loss of restraint during this event. There were no dedicated shooters. There was very little control, just police officers trying to stop a threat. I'm quoting from the report right now. The gunfire roared as more than 600 shots were fired. In some cases, officers inexplicably opened fire with their colleagues standing in front of them. One officer lay prone on the ground, searching for a target but not seeing any. At the same time, a colleague standing above him fired off shot after shot. That is completely excessive, unnecessary, and unreasonable. Let's talk about the response at the bank. The Foundation confirmed the failures of the department in responding to the bank. Proper protocol requires the officers to arrive kind of in stealth, not to be seen. National policies indicate the reason for that is that you don't want to create harm or risk to the public or to people inside the bank. You do not want to be seen. You want the robbers to get their money and leave. Because you do not want to create a hostage situation. That's why these policies and procedures are in place. The report notes that. We understand that this bank is located on a corner. Big deal. There's banks throughout this country that are located on corners. It's called location. It allows people easy access in and out of banks. That's everywhere. The fact that this bank is located on a corner location does not absolve any officer from failing to comply with standard protocol. The fact that an officer is across the street grabbing lunch does not absolve any officer of the requirement to understand and follow protocol. The first responding officer showed up directly in front of the bank with lights on, fully visible, completely violating any standard protocol. The second officer that shows up just 16 seconds before the robbers come out, fully visible, outside the door, gun drawn. The report does not indicate that that officer verbally engaged with very threatening language to the robbers and to Ms. Hubert. What that officer did by visibly being seen is push these robbers back into the bank to grab additional hostages. Amazingly, the report confirms that Quote, most officers interviewed did not know the department had direct contact with the bank employees watching live video of the robbery. Clearly, they were not following protocol, were not properly trained, and did not have an understanding as to what was happening within that bank, which is shocking based upon the experience of prior problems at that location. The foundation confirmed that agencies should determine technological capabilities of high-risk locations and the agency's accessibility to that technology. Nothing is more high risk than a bank that had been robbed numerous times and had been robbed almost in the identical fashion by two of the same three guys involved in this robbery. This is a high-risk location, yet these officers didn't even know what was happening inside that bank, and were not properly trained, did not properly understand the technology available to them that could have assisted them in evaluating the situation. It is shocking that the officers claim to be surprised that these robbers left, and one officer was simply standing out in the parking lot, shocked that these guys would come outside. Shows you the lack of training for these officers at this situation. But most importantly, as it relates to the response, it's unbelievable to us that when a bank is robbed numerous times and they've had an opportunity to investigate an incident 6 months before, that they don't know everything about that bank. Yet they knew nothing. Clearly, the report finds that the Stockton Police Department failed in its response to the bank. Let's talk about the pursuit. The report confirms that many agencies have pursuit policies in place. And in fact, it references the International Association of Chiefs of Police Best Practices Standards. The IACP model policy is well recognized and followed nationally by police departments and various agencies. The Stockton Police Department has its own protocol as it relates to pursuit. It has its own policies and procedures in place. Both the national standard and the local City of Stockton standard says you should have 2, maybe 3 vehicles in pursuit. Yet the report confirms there were not 2, there were not 3, there were upwards, at times, 56 vehicles recklessly driving around, chasing this truck on that day, well in excess of whatever's acceptable, creating chaos, creating havoc, which ultimately is not manageable, gets out of control, and results in the sympathetic fire causing her death. The Foundation's finding of lack of direction by command is shocking. Quote, noticeably absent early on in the pursuit was direction from supervisors. End of quote. The officers were noted to be driving upwards of 100 miles per hour, passing without warning and without emergency lights. When the supervisor finally told officers to pull back and stop pursuing, many, if not most officers, did not heed the instruction or command. They continued on. The Police Foundation report confirms that on July 16, 2014, the City of Stockton Police Department failed on all fronts. The response, the pursuit, and then the ultimate firing of 600 bullets, which were excessive and unnecessary. The City of Stockton's actions and the shooting of Misty Holt-Singh caused her tragic death. I need to mention that the city continually claims that this was an unusual circumstance, an event like no other. The department needs to stop making that excuse. This was not an unusual event. This same robbery involving 2 of the same robbers occurred at this bank simply 6 months prior. The city knew Mr. Renteria was involved in the prior robbery. He He was living in the city of Stockton the entire time, yet they did nothing. He just stayed in the community and he robbed it again. This was not unusual. The city's actions and failures to comply with proper industry and home department policies created this chaos, created this unusual event. But more importantly, the Police Foundation report puts the city's excuse to bed once and for all. Quoting from the report, while the Police Foundation review team recognizes the complexities of all the events associated with the Bank of the West incident, the team also recognizes the multitude of similar but not identical incidents that have occurred in real life. The Bank of the West was an armed robbery, which became a hostage incident, resulting in a vehicle pursuit, evolving into an active shooter with suspects trying to ambush and kill police officers. Any one of these incidents by itself is difficult to resolve and requires a unique response. Combined, they are a law enforcement agency's nightmare. And here's the big however. However, agencies across the country and the world have experienced some or most of these type of incidents singularly or in combination. The city created this chaos. They created through their negligent failure to conduct themselves with standard and appropriate police protocol. This was not a unique event unlike no other. They created this problem, and this happens throughout the country. Since this tragic day, we too agree and are thankful that the city has taken great steps in dealing with Paul and the community with transparency. We're appreciative of the chief for being transparent with us. And we appreciate the chief being transparent with the community. We think healing needs to take place, both for the Singh family, for Ms. Huber, Ms. Kasoya, for the officers involved, and for this community. As I indicated from the outset, we commend the city for the hiring of the independent agency to investigate the events of this tragic day. We recognize that is what they do. They have now made their findings. We also commend the city for turning these claims over to its insurance group for handling. It's too bad that we must litigate this matter. It's too bad that the city It's too bad that we must litigate this matter. It's too bad that the city had yet, until yesterday, taken steps to accept responsibility for its actions. We believe the chief did so yesterday. We are hopeful that perhaps the foundation report will be the impetus to getting the city to recognize its failures. As you recall, the city attorney has previously advised the press that the matter has been turned over to the city's insurance group for handling. When I saw that statement and I saw that news footage, I didn't know quite sure if it was an excuse or if it was a justification why they haven't accepted responsibility. If in fact the city has turned this over to its risk management group, then the city should expect this group to do the right thing. Apologize to Paul and his family, apologize to Ms. Huber and Ms. Kasoya, and sit down and get this matter resolved. Because if the city wants to resolve it, they can. There's plenty of insurance to cover this case. The city has refused to do so. The reality, folks, is that this is a case where the police officers were not properly trained, did not properly follow protocol, and ultimately, the end result was something that could be foreseen. The chaotic environment of sympathetic fire, of officers randomly shooting without having a target, 600 bullets into a vehicle, is unreasonable and excessive force. We will serve our lawsuit immediately, and we will commence with discovery. We believe the right thing for the city to do is to continue to accept responsibility and get this matter resolved. To not do so is wrong to Paul, to Ms. Huber, and Ms. Casoya, and is a disservice to the police officers involved and the community. I will now answer questions.
Here's the demand for jury trial. So can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, we will, once the lawsuit's filed, the parties can request a jury trial, and we will do so. We will want this matter to be tried by jury.
You really kind of on when this lawsuit is filed and whether the jury we have to file why, and also whether or not you see a settlement in the near.
All right, the typical time period for a lawsuit depends on the complexity of the case. So this will be a very complex case. We anticipate each of the 32 officers by right have the right to have their own lawyer. And so there's going to be a lot of lawyers involved in defending these cases. And so when you have multiple parties in a complex case like this, it could be upwards of 18 months to 24 months in that range before we would expect to get a trial date. And then as it relates to resolution, I don't know. I'm hopeful that the city will take serious the findings in the foundation report, but we'll see.
As to the 32 officers you named, each one of those did fire their gun, but only 10 bullets we know hit Misty that came from officers. Has there been any indication of who those 10 bullets came from?
No, and what we did is we have received a lot of documents from the district attorney's office, from the department, from the city, from our own investigation. And included in that are the ballistic reports. And so we know the names of the officers that fired. The reality is the ballistic report does not, at least at this point from what we've seen, identify the name of the firing officer of the 10 bullets that struck and killed Misty. We're still going to investigate that.
Is it your general feeling that the Police Foundation report supported and strengthened your position?
Yeah, the Police Foundation report found unnecessary and excessive force. That's what killed Misty. The Police Foundation report is critical of the manner in which they arrived and pursued. So yes, it really does two things. It confirms what we already knew, and it is a bolster to our case.
What was your reaction, family reaction, when you found out that Stockton police allegedly knew who Renteria was after the first robbery?
Yeah, to me that's shocking, and I'm surprised it hasn't been picked up more yet. And it was addressed at the prior press conference. It's in our complaint. And the reality is the city should expect its officers to be properly trained. And including in that is properly supervised and trained on how to investigate incidents. This bank was robbed by two of the exact same guys. And as set forth in our complaint, they knew that Gilbert Renteria was the guy that was robbing the bank in January. They had his California driver's license, they had his vehicle, and he was living in the city of Stockton. We've spoken to people that know exactly where he was living. Stayed in open daylight, was doing his normal activities, and not once was he spoken to. The city responded to his father's house, where Mr. Renteria was living at one point, because there was another issue unrelated. It was something to do with a dog, but yet nothing. I think that's shocking. They did nothing to investigate that. If they would have just simply gone in and picked him up, his vehicle had hundreds of rounds of ammunition in it. He was a felon on probation. They could have picked him up for that alone.
Paul, can we ask you a couple of questions?
Paul will make a statement briefly, but he's not going to be answering questions today. Not yet. Thank you.
As far as, I spoke with another attorney, Kelly Huber's attorney, and they believe that's propaganda. Could you say why exactly you believe that this Police Foundation report strengthens your case, even if it may not be an admissible report?
Okay, with respect to what Ms. Huber's counsel said. I know what he said. I've spoken to Mr. Meyer. And, the reality is the report doesn't go word for word into the events that happened before the arrival of the officers and then during the handling of the response and obviously the pursuit. The report lacks certain specificity. I understand that. And for instance, the report does not mention the engagement and the language used by the officer when the officer originally confronted the robber, Ms. Huber. But the report itself is written such that it criticizes the city in every aspect of what it did. And so we will be able to take the deposition of the investigating officers. Mr. Brazil has been transparent with us. We've met with him. Mr. Brazil has interviewed Paul and the others. And Mr. Brazil will be a witness in this case, and this report will come in. Any other questions?
When you decided that it's best to seek a jury trial, there's obviously a very good chance that it will be vented out of here. Is that something you still consider in line for a jury trial?
We believe that no matter where you're at, a jury trial is the best and only way to go. Because citizens of a community come together and they expect industry, they expect corporate agencies, and they expect police departments to be properly trained, properly follow protocol, be prepared for events, and do what they're supposed to do. And in this particular case, that is to protect and to serve and to not create chaos. We're confident that the evidence will establish that the department failed in all respects, and we're confident that the citizens of this community should and will expect the department to be accountable.
Do we know if the first responding officer, if she was a new officer or she was not?
I believe she was fairly new. I don't know to how many years, so I don't know. I think she was an inexperienced officer is what we've been told. I don't know how many years she's been with the department.
What do you think would be a suitable amount to settle the lawsuit?
That's any settlement numbers in that regard are something that we would discuss with the family, and at this point right now, we're just going to pursue the case and present it to trial and let the jury make that decision.
You said Mr. Brazil would be called as a witness. Did he tell the hostages and family that it was excessive force?
Yes, he did. Mr. Brazil, in front of Paul, Ms. Huber, Ms. Casoya, and other people, looked Paul in the eye and told him that the foundation concluded that the firing of 600 bullets was excessive and unreasonable force. And we expect he'll say the same thing in deposition. The report says it was excessive and unnecessary. Folks, it's pretty easy for me to establish that 600 bullets at a disabled vehicle was excessive, unnecessary, unreasonable. It's over the top, out of control. All right, any other questions? Okay, Paul Singh will make a statement, and then that will conclude the press conference.
Today is a sad day for me and my family. The last thing we wanted to do was to litigate regarding the death of Misty. We are thankful for the foundation report, and perhaps that will lead us to resolution. We also appreciate the love and support of the community and everyone else that has helped support us through this tough time.